The Hebrews entered the land of Israel about 1300 before Common Era, specifically Joshua's time. This was after Joseph's time as second in command under King Pharaoh of Egypt. They lived under a tribal confederation until being united under King Saul, which was the first monarch. He was the first king of Israel, as most of us know. The second king was David. He established Jerusalem as the capital of Israel around 1000 before Common Era. What am I saying? I'm laying the groundwork to show that from thousands of years back, easily 3,000 and beyond, already Israel is Israel. Israel is not Palestine. Israel is not Philistine, all right? Or Palestinian. David's son, King Solomon, built the temple soon thereafter, and he consolidated the militaries and the administration and the religious functions of the whole kingdom. All right? The nation, if you look at the screen, was divided into under Solomon, King Solomon's reign, with the northern kingdom, or Israel, to the north, and lasting up until about 722 before Common Era. So from the dark line there in the middle, going across your screen left to right, you see to the top is the northern kingdom of Israel, to the south, the southern kingdom, which would be known as the kingdom of Judah, or the southern kingdom. At that time, the Assyrian Empire destroyed the northern kingdom, the north up from the dark line on the map you saw. And the southern kingdom, Judah, survived until the Babylonians' conquest in 586 before Common Era. The scriptures, the Holy Scriptures, tell us that there was always a remnant of Jews in Israel. Check this out. Even from the days back thousands of years ago, despite the Assyrian exile, despite the Babylonian exile, and so forth, there has always, mark this, always been a remnant of Jews in Israel, so that you can never find a time, era, or period where that Israel is void of its Jewish chosen people. The Jewish people have enjoyed brief periods of sovereignty even after the Babylonian exile. For instance, the time period of Nehemiah and Ezra and thereafter. So it wasn't until about 135 Common Era, or known as AD, when most Jews were finally driven out of their homeland. Most, not all Jews, they were driven out. They didn't flee because they didn't like it or that something occurred, but because they were forced by war, by battle, by persecution, by exiles. So by this time, the Jewish people have been in the land over 2,000 years. By that point, by what point? 135, Common Era, or AD, all right? Which goes back to the times of Abraham, and then about 1,300 years since the times of Joshua and Caleb, which we find in our Bible. The Jewish independence in the land of Israel has lasted much, much longer than Americans have enjoyed independence, even here in the United States of America, all right, as it's known as the USA. In fact, if not for foreign conquerors, Israel, as an ongoing nation, would be way more than 3,000 years old today. If it wasn't for Palestine, was never, ever exclusively Arab country. What did I say? I'm saying Palestine, Palestina, the land of Palestine, which they've tried to push over to remove the name Israel, was never exclusively Arab, period. Look at the screen. Arabic gradually became the language of most of the population after the Muslim invasions of the 7th century of this Common Era. So we find that it wasn't until around the 7th century Common Era, or AD, where the Arabic influence comes in. So no independent Arab or Palestinian state ever existed in Palestine. I want to make this very clear. All right? The term Palestine goes back to the Roman period. the Roman Empire. And so it was never a biblical term as such.